to If These Pages Could Talk. Today we are talking with another Champagne Book Group editor and author. We have some fun trivia to get us started, though. We are going to also be talking about travel and how that inspires some writing. So a little continuation from our last episode. And we are talking about maybe turning your book into a series. But first, I'm Kiersten Marcil, author and adventurer into history. I'm here with my co-host,
Sevannah Storm, a romance author.
And without further ado, our special guest, please introduce yourself.
My name is Dawn. I write as DM Barr.
Awesome. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. We're glad you're here. What I loved when I was preparing for today was looking at your website, and I saw that you compete in trivia. So that was the inspiration for our icebreaker today. And I understand Dawn has a very good trivia question for us. The only rule I put out there was it had to be related to the literary world. So Dawn, you want to hit us with a trivia question, and we'll see if Sevannah can get it.
Yeah. So one of my favorite books, I know many people find this controversial, is Atlas Shrugged. Okay. And my question relates to that. Which 70s actress with whom she happens to share a birthday did Ayn Rand want to cast as Dagny Taggart in the film adaptation of Atlas Shrugged, had it been filmed during her life?
Farrah Fawcett?
You got it. Oh my God, you got it.
It's the only 1970s actress I know.
I can't believe you got it. She shares a birthday, February 2nd, and Ayn Rand loved Charlie's Angels. And she told Farrah Fawcett that she would have liked her to be Dagny Taggart. And so I can't believe you got that, but congratulations, because I thought it was the most remote question ever.
Wow. You must be like tied in psychically, because that was amazing pull there. So
yeah, nice. She is like the last person I would have thought would have made. I mean, you know who I would have thought Diana Rigg when she was younger, who played Emma Peel on The Avengers, would have been a great Dagny Taggart. But I never would have thought Farrah Fawcett.
Yeah. I just remember her hair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. I'm impressed.
Yeah. Okay, here's mine for you ladies. Okay, let's see who's going to get this one. Who was the first author to use a type machine or a typewriter in writing their manuscript?
Agatha Christie?
That's what I was thinking too.
No, Mark Twain.
Ah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. You got one for us, though?
Yes. Which book has sold the most copies?
Don Quixote. No?
The Bible.
The Bible was sold by 3 million copies. Recently, the author's Colleen Hoover.
Verity?
No kidding.
Verity sold more than the Bible?
Yeah, by 3 million copies.
I really love Verity, but I kind of felt guilty loving it. Like it was a guilty pleasure. I thought it was so good that I keep thinking about it, but I'm shocked that that's true. So, because I looked at that question and it must have been outdated because my answer was
because I thought it was the Bible, and it said 5 billion copies were sold of the Bible. And so I Googled some more, and I Googled some more just to make sure. And then it said, no, Colleen Hoover sold it out by 3 million copies, specifically after a TikTok post.
Wow.
TikTok.
Okay. Yeah.
And now we depressed.
Maybe she has hotels putting Verity in their side tables.
Yeah.
Instead of the Bible.
Yeah. And in churches, in the pews.
Oh my goodness. All right, good one.
Oh. So Dawn, I was curious, do you still compete in trivia competitions?
Occasionally. I was part of a couple of different teams, and I was very lucky to get on with a group called the Penguins. And in a lot of my books, you'll see in my bio, go Penguins. And many of the people on that team had been on Jeopardy and on Millionaire and a bunch of different game shows and had done well. So I figured I was the weakest link on that team. I knew very obscure things, but I filled in here and there, but I was definitely not the strongest, but they sort of carried me along. And we went to the World Trivia Championships in
Wow.
Atlantic City. Well, it was like the World Tavern Trivia. It sounds bigger than it was, but it was really fun. And we did that for like 5 years. And then COVID kind of killed a lot of this. It went online, but to
Yeah,
me, it was never the same to do trivia online. And
right.
now occasionally I'll join the Penguins once in a while to do something, but I'm not going to big tournaments anymore. But I did enjoy it while I did it.
That's so fun. I keep my husband is very is just lots of just random out there stuff. And I keep saying he needs to audition for some of those shows because I wouldn't mind some of those $1 million prizes.
Which is much nicer to say to them than, honey, you're so trivial.
Yes. If anybody's saying that in my household, it's him to me, I think. Oh my gosh. I'm just curious, are the competitions like a free for all? Do they focus you sometimes on a topic?
No, the ones I went to would generally be 2 days long, and they'd consist of I'm trying to remember. It would be like different rounds of, I think they were 10 or 20 questions each, and then after each round you'd hand in your answers, and then you'd be told where you stood in the rankings. And you came with your own team. Many of them brought their own banners or dressed up. I mean, and you saw the same people year after year.
Yeah.
These were really intense trivia players. I mean, this was their lives. And our main competition were the weasels. And my friend Andrew, oh, I hate those weasels. We have to beat the weasels.
That's so
we had
awesome.
a good time. Would do a pub crawl where you did different in the evenings, where you did different questions at different hotels in Atlantic City.
Yeah,
It was a good time. I was sorry when it ended.
that does sound like fun.
Yeah.
There's this rom-com that I've been watching lately on, I don't know if it's Amazon Prime, called Not Another Happy Ending. And it's, this girl getting her book published and she's trying to write the sequel. And it's just this, I've talked about it before. But that is how she bonds with her estranged dad, is he is the coach of the head of this trivia team competing in the pub, and she joins up with them. So
Oh, very good. I in the back of my mind, I know there's a book I'll write that involves trivia. It won't be that, but it'll probably be some kid on the spectrum who finds he's accepted within trivia because he knows so much, and he has that arc of coming, blooming and finding love through trivia. But I just haven't so many ideas, so little time.
right, yeah. Where do you keep your ideas? Sev and I were talking about this before, so I love to hear from people. Where do you store your ideas for future books?
I'm bad. I usually try to remember them. Sometimes I type them into my phone, but not into any one particular file. And
Yeah.
when I start with one that I met with my friend Elf. Yes, that's her real name, Elf, yesterday. Great writer. And I was saying I'm torn in 100 different directions. I don't know what to do. I'm going to have to dump something, but I have this great idea for a romance series. And then we started talking about that. She's like, yeah, that's a great idea. Let's go with it.
Are you the kind of person where you will get an idea and you have to stop what you're working on to start that new idea?
Yeah, no, I'm too linear. I have to finish what I'm working on first. And the other things, I have one idea that has been bugging me, and I keep playing it over and over in my mind, and it's going to be a really good romance. And there's other things that have gotten in the way, and I just keep trying to remember the scenes in my head because I have to work. I have to start at the beginning and end at the end. I can't deviate unless I
Yeah,
get an idea, and then I'll fill in when I'm editing. But
yeah.
I generally go A to Z, and then I put the other stories off. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's the only way I know how to work.
I know, I'm totally the same way. I am amazed at people who can just write a book scene out of order, or they set a book aside and go,
Yeah.
which I say, no, I guess I am. I wrote the first 2 books in my series, and then while I was querying, I started a brand new separate book. So that's the itch in my under my bonnet right now is getting back to that other side book once I turn in book 2. But
I think
no,
the only way you
is
can write out of order, if you're a plotter. And then you know what each scene's going to be. And then you can say, oh, I'll do this one, that this one moves me now. But if you're kind of a hybrid or a pantser, it's very hard.
I always
Yeah.
wrote the scenes. I mean, in the beginning, when I started this journey, I used to write the scenes because it came to me and I jotted them down. And then I found that when I tried to write the scenes in between to get to this point, it just never quite gelled correctly. And then people would say, why is this scene here? And I can't explain that it was one of the first scenes that I wrote and I want to keep, but that it doesn't make sense anymore. So now I do like you do, start from A, and I always find that if I've got a scene that I have in mind, I write it when it is time to write it, like a reward. Get through this painful section, and then you can write the scene that you want to write.
I like that.
Yeah, no, it's a great way. Dawn, did you know that you wanted to be a writer when you were younger?
It's really funny. When I was really young, I wrote poetry, and it was usually pretty funny poetry. But actually, it alternated between really dismally depressing about ghettos and people dying. And my mother say, "Why are you writing this depressing stuff? You had a happy childhood." So she thought, but or like satire and funny poems. And my grandmother would look at some of this stuff and say, "You didn't write this, did you?" It's almost accusing me of plagiarism. She was really proud. And she was kind of like saying, "Wow, this is amazing." It's like, "You wrote this?" And so I learned really early that you get praise from your writing. And it was one of the few places where I got praise and I could express myself. And so, I started, it was really just that until I was probably in college. And then I started enjoying writing literary criticism. I was saying, oh, maybe I'll be a literary critic because they make a lot of money. And that wasn't going to happen. So when I left college, I started doing sales and a lot of sales writing. So brochures and newsletters and later web content and things like that. And I didn't start fiction. I mean, I was a magazine editor for a while, which I still do now, but I was staff for a while. And it wasn't until my 50s that I had the guts to write fiction. I had gone to a writing workshop in Long Island when I was 20, and it was I went for nonfiction, but I kind of wandered into a fiction class. And just the idea of creating worlds was so interesting to me. And I thought, oh, I should do this one day. But I think that I was always scared, like I couldn't do it. And when I finished my first book, I guess that was in 2015, I was like, it was like one of the greatest moments that I had created this. And also the excitement of knowing that I knew something no one else knew, which was how this book ended. I was the only one in the world who knew the story and knew how it ended, which is a cool thing.
Yeah, definitely. Is there some overlap in how you write or what you learn from writing for magazines and nonfiction that carries over into your fiction writing?
No, because it might work the other way. I think since I've been writing fiction, my nonfiction maybe is a less dry, because nonfiction is more dry. I have a nonfiction book out, and they did an audiobook of it, and I couldn't understand why. Because I mean, I'm glad they did because they paid me a lot of money to buy the rights, but I couldn't figure out why anybody would want to listen to addresses and phone numbers while they're driving. It was just, some of the parts are, they're narrative. It'll be great, but a lot of it wasn't. And I won't ever read my nonfiction in my critique group because I just think it would be dull to listen to, but I think it's important. It's valuable. Nonfiction is my stuff is valuable because I'm teaching people how to either do their business better, or in the case of my most recent book, how to travel with children on the autism spectrum. But the one thing I learned that was the difference, a couple of things between fiction and nonfiction, is that far fewer people die in my nonfiction, far fewer murders. And also you have to really get approval for everything that you've written. So after I finished it and I sent it to my publisher, they said, okay, where are the releases? And I'm like, the releases? I have all these people, they filled out questionnaires. I have them on Zoom interviews. Like, no, they have to actually sign something. And then everything I had quoted, I had to get permission from the people I had quoted from magazines and internet. And that's something that, yeah, with fiction, I'm being very careful to get my facts right. And I might interview people or read to do background or just Google a lot, but I don't have to get any written releases.
That's why I write sci-fi. So much easier.
I was gonna say that's why I write historical, because everybody's past, and I'm writing my ancestors, so I give permission to write about my own ancestors.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Lots
that's why
of
I
people
create
die in my
towns.
fiction. What's that?
I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. No, I just said lots of people died in my fiction and nonfiction.
Yeah, but they were, yeah, if I'm going to write about kids traveling, that are on the spectrum, I don't want anybody dying.
No. That would be like a whole different genre.
It's not going to sell to libraries as well.
No. Oh. How to travel and oops, all set.
Yeah, that's not the travel book I want to write. Oops. But I was saying that I create towns because I don't want anybody correcting me about, that wasn't located here. And I write about Rock Canyon in some of my books. I live in Rockland, but I write about Rock Canyon because it's so well disguised. And I wrote about a police station. And my friend from the Penguins, who was with the South Orangetown Police, said, "Oh, you really described our building well." I was like, "No, I've never even seen it. I was making it up." Wow. So yeah, my places are all pretty much made up.
Yep.
That's yeah. Sev's like, not touching the real place.
No.
I actually, I have to go, or I like going to the places that I write about, because it's good to know what you're talking about, especially with historical. But Dawn, you travel a lot too, though.
I do. I was the daughter of 2 travel agents. I traveled a lot growing up. My mother hated to fly, so we cruised a lot and did a lot of transatlantic crossings. I was on the original Queen Mary and Queen Elizabeth, which I just dated myself. And I still love to travel, and I got my kids traveling, and I'm still a travel writer. In fact, in beginning of May, I'm off to Finland to cover the Icon of the Seas is still in the shipyard in Turku, and I'm going to be one of the first people on it to film the building of it. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, I write for Insider Travel Report, and I have a column on family travel and special needs travel, but I also do reporting when they need it, and I go to different places to report.
That's fabulous. Do you have a favorite destination that you've gone to?
So many. I love Tahiti. I love Venice. I love Paris. London's like second home to me. My dad's British, and I spent a lot of time in London growing up. Yeah, there are a lot of favorite places. I love Paris. I love Italy. I could go on and on.
Oh, that's awesome. I was lucky enough to do not nearly extent as you, but I've done a little bit of traveling. I toured with a choir when I was in high school and saw a lot of Northern Europe that way. And I studied for summer in London. So I was there when the Globe Theatre had its opening season. And that was where so that's where I would bum out during in between class time. So, but wow, you've been to some great places. Yeah,
then there's still a lot more that I want to get to, but COVID kind of screwed me up. I wrote 4 books during COVID, but I didn't do any traveling. So
it balanced out.
Yeah.
What's probably top on your bucket list for travel?
I want to go to Morocco. I want to go to the Norwegian fjords. I want to go to South Africa. We were talking about that before. I haven't been to New Zealand. I've been to Australia, but I'd like to see more. Where else? I haven't been to Spain and Portugal for some unknown reason. I have been to Barcelona, but only for a short time. I'd like to do much more of Spain. And I want to go back to London. There are some great mystery conventions there I'd like to do. And also I'm a big fan. One of the things that got us through COVID was watching British panel shows. And I fell in love with a show called Would I Lie to You? And
I was just watching that yesterday.
Isn't that great? I love, and then the main team leaders, Lee Mack and David Mitchell travel with Rob Brydon in different cities in England and just, I guess, improvise, and they have their own little shtick. And we actually bought tickets for Edinburgh, and we were going to fly over, and COVID kind of ruined it for us because it sort of came back when it came back. And then I wanted to go over and see David Mitchell and Upstart Crow, and that didn't work. But I will get back over there. And now I feel like I know all the comedians because we've been watching all the panel shows. Yeah, so I'd love to get over and see some of that.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that would be cool. Why don't we kick into your book, actually?
Okay,
Before
which
we do
one?
anything else. You tell me which one you want to talk about, because you had two come out the same year with CBG.
Yeah, I had two come out, and I had this nonfiction book come out. I was writing them all, and I also edited I co-edited an anthology for Sisters in Crime, a crime story, which is called Justice for All at the same time. So all of that came out in 21 and 22.
Wow.
Yeah, I got involved with Champagne Book Group, and I published Queen of Second Chances and Simple Tryst of Fate. And Queen of Second Chances was a big deviation for me because there's nobody dying, and it's a very sweet book. There's no sex. It's all like heartfelt and hopeful. And I didn't want to deal with death during COVID. And for a long time, I had the idea for it, and I put it aside because originally it was set in a nursing home, and no one was going to read something set in a nursing home after what happened during COVID. But then I got the idea that I could write it about a senior center. It didn't have to be assisted living or an old age home. It could just be a senior center. And I kind of modeled it on my time. I did some work for Meals on Wheels. And I created a fake Meals on Wheels wannabe called Salad, which stood for Seniors Awaiting Lunch and Dinner. And I got to throw in all these puns about, leave it alone and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, full of puns, that book. And anybody who knows me knows I love puns, and it either makes them cringe or they laugh. So I don't know. But it was a very sweet book about second chances and getting do-overs. And I enjoyed writing that book. It didn't do as well for me, I think, because I had such a switch for my audience. And looking back, I think I wish I'd written it under a different author name. And I had spoken to my editor there, and they didn't think that was necessary. And I'm always like, well, I do want to sell my backlist. And I don't know why I thought my readers would follow me to, and I wanted to write it as a rom-com. It came off more as women's fiction, and they weren't coming with me. I still hope that will find an audience if I write sequels to it. And then I wrote Simple Tryst of Fate in 3 weeks, which is the fastest I've ever read any. Well, I wasn't working. So it was like nonstop thing. And it was based on my time as a travel writer, based on a press trip I took to Argentina. I guess it was in the mid-'80s, late 80s. And she has a lot more fun on that trip than I did. But because she's a woman who, the main character is named Danny Barrett, and she is divorced. She was a travel writer, and she left it for 10 years when she got married, and she wanted a more stable life. But now she's divorced, and she's come back to it, swearing that she'll never fool around with anybody on a press trip. She'll never fall in love. She won't, you can really screw your reputation if you start fooling around on press trips. Or so I'm told. I have not done that. And I have not. This is not my story. And but what she has done is taken up a secret life as an erotica writer to get out some of her urges. She's sort of writing from desire rather than experience. And she has a great pen name, which is Fuller Cox, which I thought was a great pen name. COX. And so she goes on this press trip. She runs into a friend of hers who's a man who's gay. He had to be gay because I needed him to be not her love interest. And there's another man named James Aldridge, who's a publisher, who's on the trip. And she kind of really likes him. But she's not going to fool around. And he charms her. And it turns out he's not there really as a publisher. He's sort of pursuing corruption in South America, and he's using this as a cover. And they develop a relationship, much to her gay friend's chagrin, because he knows that this guy screwed up his lover's life, and by putting the kibosh on one of his books. And anyway, it's a fun book to write and read. It would be a fun book to read.
Very cool.
Are
How
you going
spicy.
to, sorry,
Go
are
ahead.
you,
Sorry?
are you going to, why can't you unpublish your first book and republish it under a pseudonym?
I looked into that, and I sort of put that question out there to the 20 books to 50K group, which I'm sort of throwing myself into. And they were like, you can get into trouble with Amazon because they'll think you're plagiarizing it. I'm not sure I got a definitive answer on that because, and anyway, I don't own the rights to it.
Oh, yeah.
I won't own the rights till I think 2026 on both Tryst and Queen of Second Chances. So I'm going to go back to the books where the rights have reverted back to me, and I'm going to build on those first, and I'll get to it.
Hmm.
Yeah. Sounds like you have plenty on your plate that'll keep you busy until then.
Well, I hadn't really thought about this series thing. I always thought these are standalones. I can't turn them into series. And I had a long talk with a guy named Brian Meeks, who was very kind. I heard him lecture, and I wrote to him afterward, and I asked him some questions, because what he'll do is he'll write your blurb for you. You can pay him to write your blurb. And I thought, okay, I can really actually learn how to do Amazon advertising right, because I've never really done it right. And so he was kind enough to spend like almost an hour on the phone with me, no charge, just giving me advice. And he opened my eyes. It was sort of like an epiphany that, yeah, I can create these characters and go off in different, tangents. And I hadn't really thought about it. And then I was really excited about that. So I was okay, I'm dedicating my life to that, because only all or nothing for Dawn. No gray. My life is now dedicated to throwing myself into nothing but writing the sequels to these books.
But you need that kind of
now.
Yeah, you need that kind of dedication though to achieve. Like if you're not all in, you're not going anywhere. So
yeah, that's what I tell people. If you don't think your book is the greatest thing known to man, you're not going to be able to sell it.
Right. Yeah. You got to love it, because it's a long road.
Yeah.
I was going to ask earlier, on a scale of Hallmark sweet to ghost pepper spicy, how spicy is Simple Tryst of Fate?
Not as spicy as my first book. My first book, Expired Listings, was very BDSM-y. And I really liked that part of it, but it was in an unusual way, because it was all mindset. And people would write, there was nothing sexy. There was no sex in the book, but it was all the mind games people play in the scene. I would say it's probably a 6 on Simple Tryst of Fate. There's definitely, she wants to investigate her kink. She wants to explore it. James is kinky. He's a dom. She discovers that, which is a great scene, or series of scenes, how she finds that out, and she wants him to teach her. And I enjoyed writing that.
You got, okay. So, yeah, all right, I'll go for it. What is that?
Oh, okay. What is BDSM? Okay.
Just shake your head.
You've been doing this a while. I'm surprised that this hasn't come up before. There's a couple of different definitions. It can be bondage, discipline, sadomasochism. It can be bondage,
dominance, isn't it?
Dominance, and yeah, there's a couple of different definitions.
My first book, they didn't even kiss. Like, I'm working my way up, but
yeah, my first book, which was about a rock canyon where all the realtors were getting knocked off. My main character was pretty kinky, and she would use her empty houses, her empty listings, for games of bondage bingo with her lover. So if people want to know what bondage bingo is, you'll have to buy Expired Listings, but it's fun.
And I'm just thinking, let's not blacklight those listings. Just No.
Yeah.
Now I
Yeah.
want to. I think I'm going to buy a black light next time I actually go and look at houses.
Oh no.
It was interesting what nobody really realized how dangerous it is being a realtor. And I am a
Mm.
realtor. So
Yeah.
that's why I wrote that book. So people would understand, you put glamour pictures on signs outside empty houses telling them you'll be alone there for 4 hours on a Sunday. You get
Right.
into cars with strangers, and it's dangerous. And I had people in that book get killed in ironic ways. Like I had one woman get tied to a hot water heater and die of thirst in a listing that no one would go to because it was overpriced.
Wow.
Irony.
Wow. Mm. Wow, that
So
is an education. We my realtor, we've had the same realtor for years. Like we email him just to say hi sometimes, and he never drove in a car with us. Like we always met him places in his own car, and he never did
yeah,
an open house for us. No, that's not true. I think we did have an open house, actually, our last house. Wow.
yeah, less done now. More people are doing their own cars since COVID, but there was a time if somebody came into town and they didn't have a car, like they came in by train, what are you going to do? Run
Oh,
after my car? You have to take them.
right,
Um,
right.
and it's also a
Yeah.
time where you can be sort of going over, listening to them, hearing what they thought about the different houses, so you know how to plan your next tour, because
Yeah.
you'll really get it. Because if they're in their own car, you can't really hear what they're thinking, and that helps you find the right
Mm,
house for them. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, it can be dangerous being a realtor, and so that was the point of that book.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing. How many books do you have out?
Well, the first one was erotica under a different name, and I don't talk about it much, but it did win BDSM novella of the year it came out. So it did probably the best of all my books that way. It got published by Lucid, which was a really great publisher who unfortunately went under. A lot of my publishers go under. I think I'm bad luck for them,
Say that.
but at least two of them have gone under after signing
Oh,
me and publishing my books. But I've got that one. I have the one I edited, which co-edited. So that's not only my work, but my first short stories in there. I've got the nonfiction, so that's 3. And then
yeah.
I've got 5 standalones. So 8 total. I'm working on the 9th one now.
Wow. Um, what is let's go back to the idea that you're going to start a series. What is the benefit to taking those standalones and turning them into a series?
They might actually make more money. And the idea is that if you're going to pay for advertising is expensive now because you're paying, I guess, per click. So the cost of client acquisition or reader acquisition is pretty high.
Yeah.
And you might take a loss on it, but you're not going to take as much of a loss on it if they start reading your whole series. So if you take a loss on book 1, but there are 5 more books in the series, if they
Yeah.
like your first book, they're going to buy the other ones at full whack.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's the main point.
Yeah.
And
That's
also,
cool.
you
Which one?
spend so much time doing world building. It's just so much easier when you've already got it's solidified in book 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. You're just elaborating a little bit more on your original world building. So you're not starting from scratch, which is lovely.
Yeah,
That is,
as long as you've listed some characters that you can build on. Now, luckily in expired listings, I have some characters that I can build on. And I like them very much. I like the voice in that book. I like writing snarky, and I have
yeah.
some very snarky characters in there.
Yeah.
So I've had the idea for this book since I wrote the first one, and other things. I just get in love with other ideas. And I think my first several books have so many, it's like if you put them together, you'd really have an autobiography. But I'm not telling you what parts are real and what parts aren't. There's definitely parts of me in all my book, including the one I'm writing now.
Yeah.
And so I think I had to get that out. I had to express what happened in my life without really telling you it was me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Oh, cool. I have a special members only portion of my website, and that is also something I've been teasing to people, which, well, this is a little Easter egg for my family. So now you know what it is too, but it's only for people who, like I said, are members or subscribe to my newsletter, get those little insights. But that is cool.
Yeah.
Were you a suspense reader when you were growing up?
One of my first favorite books was Harriet the Spy. So I was writing about solving mysteries. I also loved the Avengers growing up. So I come back to Diana Rigg and the Avengers. I love that. I remember my grandmother getting me an Alfred Hitchcock book when I was probably like 7 or 8, and a whole book of Alfred Hitchcock stories. So yeah, I read everything. I liked Gothic horror growing up, which I don't read now, but I remember reading a lot of that, and a lot of literary fiction. Not as much the classics. There are a lot. I've just finished Pride and Prejudice this year. I
Wow.
listened to an audiobook. I was late to the game on a lot of different books. Uh, what's the one, Steinbeck? No, I sound
The
like
Pearl?
Grapes of Wrath. Grapes of Wrath.
Oh,
I was
yeah,
really
yeah.
late to that. I love that book, but I was really late to the table with that.
Okay.
So
You were doing other
I,
stuff.
I read a lot. Right now I'm reading Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmes, which is amazing book. But yeah, lots of different. And then I read Verity, and I just, I didn't only read mystery,
Yeah.
but I do like psychological suspense. My books. You won't. My husband says you'll never know the color of the wallpaper. Mind. And
Mm.
that's what I try to write about in my books.
Have you taken any classes for like psychology of a character?
No, I studied psychology in college.
Okay.
And I just listened to a 2018 recording from Romance Writers of America called Writing for the Id by
Yeah,
someone named Dr. Jennifer Barnes. I downloaded that, and that was fantastic about the things that people want out of you. You've read it, you've heard it.
I've
What
heard of
people want
it.
out
I
of
have
it.
heard.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
she'll say that what your id craves is things like touch, competition, wealth. There was a whole bunch of 8 or 9 things, and you should try to put as much of that in your books as you can because it's writing for what people crave. And so I'm going to try
Mhm.
to look at that. But no, I think I've already created what the character thinks. I haven't really studied it. I've sort of intuited it.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it helps, I think, too, that you have that psychology background. I hadn't thought about that before. I took a lot of psychology in undergrad and grad, and yeah, cool. What genres do you edit then?
The only thing I won't edit is I won't edit fantasy and magic because I don't like them. I'm very logical and rooted in reality.
Okay.
Even though some of my books seem sort of outrageous in what happens, it's not magic.
Yeah.
But other than that, I don't have issues with, what I'll read. I mean,
What?
every genre should have conflict and characterization and,
Mhm.
a plot that makes sense. And that's what I'm looking for.
Okay. What is something where if you start reading a book that you're looking at as an editor to take on, what's something that might jump out at you and make you say, yeah, this is probably something I'm going to ask for?
Oh, usually if they have some humor in it, if they have a distinctive voice, if it doesn't seem stilted, I'll usually like that. And if they have something that I haven't read 100 times before, if they have something unique about it, or if the way that I just read something today, that was a military romance. It's not for champagne. It was for a contest that my group, Hudson Valley Scribes, runs, called 25 for 25. And the way they wrote the action scenes was so evocative. I really like the way I like the woman's voice. And so if I was editing it, if I was as an acquisition editor, I would have ordered a full.
Oh, cool. Is there something that would be a particular red flag for you?
Oh, yes.
Mhm.
If you haven't taken the time to really edit that submission,
Yeah.
gone through with grammar, if you screw up your grammar, I'm going nuts. If you don't know the difference where the comma is between its and its, I'm not happy. Or if you don't know where an apostrophe goes, whether it makes something plural or possessive, I had one submission where the people had like made an edit but left the original in. So you had it twice. And I'm like, what else did you screw up? How thorough is your research going to be if you haven't even taken the time to read through a submission to a publisher, or if you don't make sense? I get very upset. Well, not upset, but it's a red flag for me if your plot doesn't make sense. Like I had one woman who in the story who saw that her daughter had sort of wandered off and was talking to a stranger in a museum. And so she runs over to tell the daughter to get away. And she says, Mary Jane Smith, what are you doing? And I'm like, you're scared this guy's a pervert. Are you really going to give the guy her full name? So it's that sort of thing. Or if you start a story making me think it's one storyline, and then somewhere along the line, it completely switches to a different storyline, and what I was sort of hoping it would be doesn't turn out to be.
Yeah.
And that happens in the first 3 chapters, I'm giving it a no.
Yeah. Yeah. I do copy edit work, not for CBG, but so I don't have the same challenges that you two do as a content editor, but it's just, I can imagine it's got to be so much work when you hit that, and you just know it's going to be too much work.
I just feel like if I can't salvage it, because I don't mind helping someone rewrite something, but I'm not going to rewrite every line. And, it's kind of fun when you help them make something more concise. They're saying something in 20 words when you could say it in one really good verb, but
Yeah.
I'm not rewriting their whole plot. That's their job.
Right.
But I do enjoy editing. And for the first several books that I read or submissions of a couple of chapters I read for Champagne, I turned them down. And then I was thinking, they're going to think that I am so picky. And I would write these long paragraphs about why I was turning it down to justify it. Like they were going to fire me from this job that's practically a volunteer job.
Right. But I think it's the same thing as we were saying about marketing. You've got to love it, because my gosh, that editing process goes on, and it's multiple rounds, and yeah.
Can become painful.
They're really
yes.
good about that. They're
That's
good
good.
about that. They said that if you don't totally love the book, then don't edit it. You have to be the book's champion. So I was good with that. I would turn it back. I said, if I'm iffy, I'm saying have somebody else read this to see if they agree. Because for me, it's a no-go, but it does have some strong points, and I don't want to turn someone down if it has some, hope of making it to page.
Yeah. That's good. You had mentioned Hudson Valley Scribes, so I wanted to ask you a little bit about them.
Yeah, well, I'm in the Hudson Valley, lower Hudson Valley, and this group is something I joined in 2015 when I was first finished my book and thought everybody was going to fall in love with this great book, and I was turning the world around. It was Hudson Valley Romance Writers of America at the time.
Yeah.
And I walked in and I read something, and somebody who's eventually became a good friend said, well, that's not a romance. You have the main character committing adultery. And I'm like, what? I don't know. I didn't know. Can I still come back? It says, yeah, you can come back. And we've since, I wasn't actually even writing romance at the time. I switched to that ended up being a psychological thriller with some romance. And I ended up somehow, they made me president, which was pretty good feat when I wasn't writing romance. And then I spent 4 years as president. I've just sort of stepped down. But in that, when just before COVID hit, there were a lot of scandals that sort of ripped through Romance Writers of America. And we, after a lot of soul searching, we extricated ourselves, and we became Hudson Valley Scribes, and we opened ourselves up to a number of other genres, since many of us were writing thrillers or paranormals, and we are sort of stepping away from romance. And so it's been a great help to me to be part of that group, because we have a critique group that meets every other Tuesday, and the people don't sugarcoat anything. They'll rip it apart. We ended up spending 15 minutes arguing about the color of a truck once. Should this be red? Should it be a truck? And you had so much fun when you look back at that. What were we doing? It was like an erotica novel, and we really felt this was an important point. We spent a lot of time eating and editing, and we've become really good friends. And I cherish that group, and they've made me a much better writer.
That's fantastic. And that's not the only group you're a part of, correct? Because you
Yeah,
mentioned some crime.
I've really overextended myself over the past few years. I am stepping down. The last several years vice president of our local Sisters in Crime New York, which is another group that I've really loved being part of. I was vice president in charge of membership and of programming. And COVID was great for programming because I could bring in, we're doing everything on Zoom. I could bring in writers from all over the world to be part of our little group rather than just people who are based in New York. So that was really great. And I'm a member now. I'm on the board of Mystery Writers of America New York chapter. I'm doing their newsletter. And I belong to various other groups, but I'm not as active. I'm sort of just listening. I'm Society of American Travel Writers, American Society of Journalists and Authors. I've got to learn to say no.
Yeah. We were just talking to Useful Son about that last night. How because he's useful and that's his thing. And we were trying to convince him that sometimes you have to say no. Yeah.
Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something.
Exactly. Yes. Wow. And that's awesome that you're involved in so many groups, because you must learn so much and just get to, experience so many different people in their writing. And
yeah, I love the networking potential. You meet so many great people, and and now with doing the newsletter, I'm really getting to interview people that I might not have ever really had a chance to interview from Mystery Writers of America. When I go into different spaces like conventions, I know people, and actually, it may not seem this way, but I'm a terribly shy person. And when I go into a group, I'm like, I shut down. But if I know people, like the only way that got me through that is interviewing people when I was a reporter.
Yeah.
I can go into a place because I belong there because I have a job to do it. It's the same thing with being on a board or running some sort of event because you have a reason to be there. And so that's why it's been very helpful to me to be on the inside of these groups. Yeah, but now when I walk into a convention, I know a lot of people, and then I feel more comfortable.
Yeah, that's great. I'm the same way. You would never know. I'm super shy. I'm super introverted, but yeah, just getting involved in groups and just pushing through it. And yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. We're kind of out of time, so maybe we'll wrap with this. What are you working on right now?
I'm up every morning at 4:30 so I can get this done before work, get 1,000 words in. I am writing a thriller that's probably the most commercial thing I've written. It deals with narcissism. It deals with the ways what your parents' expectations and the way they dealt with you as a child influences your whole life. And the question it raises is, to what extent would you go to safeguard your own your fledgling self-image? And there's going to be some depth.
Wouldn't have it any other way.
I'm having a lot of fun with this book.
Oh, good. That's cool. How far into it are you?
36,000 words, but who's counting? I should have it done by, I should hopefully have it done. I'm doing a lot of traveling in May, but I hopefully will have it done by the end of June, edit in July, beta readers in August, and maybe pitching it in September.
Fantastic. Well, we'll keep an eye out for that. Where should people look to find you online?
For my fiction, I'm at dmbarr.com, and I'm on Instagram. I'm almost never on Instagram, to be honest with you. But I'm on Facebook and Twitter as author DM Barr. And for my nonfiction, which I write under my full name, which is Dawn Barkley, I'm at travelingdifferent.com, which is the name of my nonfiction book.
Nice. That's great. All right. Well, everybody, if you have any questions for Dawn that we have not answered, please put them in the comments below or let us know what you would like us to ask in the future. You'll also find Dawn's website Please check out her books. Again, her two from Champagne Book Group were The Queen of Second Chances and Simple Tryst of Fate. And thank you so much, Dawn, for coming.
Thank you. It's been really a lot of fun.
Yeah, we had a great time chatting with you too. Like and subscribe, everybody. Don't forget to follow. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.